What's up, everybody? Today we're going to talk about another 8-player tournament that I went to up at Games for Life in Lake Orion up here in Michigan. And it was a fun tournament, and I'm really excited to talk about my matches and like how it was laid out and everything. First though, I want to say that I'm definitely got some really good games in. So soon I'm going to be starting to create maps again. So look forward to that on the channel. Right now I am doing the Truth and Reconciliation League, which I did get confirmation. It's a tabletop simulator league. I got confirmation that they're still accepting people. If they want to join in on the league, you would basically join on round 3. But it's really cool if you want to get on, you want to play with the community. It's all skill levels. You do have to join their Patreon, which I'll link below. But it's only like $5 and you can join the league, play some games online of Halo Flashpoint with a ton of the community. I'm in it. But let's talk about the tournament. This tournament was a great turnout with another 8 players, but the tournament layout was pretty simple. This tournament also only had 3 rounds, which felt pretty nice. But it was nice because we got a chance to use the new War Games list building for this tournament specifically. So everyone was creating lists and playing against them. Now, originally this tournament was supposed to be only 3 games of Rumble Pit, which is a new game type that comes with the tournament packet. But they decided to switch it up and just do the first game as Rumble Pit, second game is Capture the Flag, and then third game is Oddball. So let's talk about what lists I created and brought to this tournament. If you're curious about how I'm creating my list, there is a Halo Flashpoint dedicated app for list building and tournament play and events and things like that. I will link that obviously in the description below. It is a web application, but if you're on your phone, you can just save the website as a little icon on your homepage. Also, if you have used the Halo Flashpoint app, make sure to leave a comment on your feedback, because I talk to Mantic regularly and I can let them know any feedback that the community has about the app. So here's a photo of the list that I brought to this tournament. Now, I created this list originally as a 3-man Spartan squad because, well, I thought it was going to be Rumble Pit, and that's a purely Slayer game. So I was going to create some beefy Spartans. I decided once we made the switch to play the other game types, I decided to stick with the list because this is the list that I've been practicing with, but just keep that in mind when I go over my list. First up is the CQB. The CQB with the hammer is probably my favorite unit in the game right now. The hammer is just so fun to play with. No, it's not as killy as the sword CQB, but it is just so fun knocking around players, and it's very good for objectives. I decided to give him the hard light shield, that way his armor 3 goes up to armor 4 and just makes him really hard to kill. I gave him the grapple shot so he can get up into close combat quicker. And I ended up giving him a rocket launcher because I had extra points. It helps with pinning. And if he gets pinned, he can at least shoot something and cause damage that way. It's always a smart idea to give your melee guys grenade weapons. Then we have my trusty Gungnir with the grenade launcher to just add some pinning and shake things up a little bit. But I ended up giving him a shock rifle. Shock rifle is a long weapon. And with the Gungnir, he's able to shoot that long weapon as a short action. Plus, the shock rifle is very deadly, which for Rumble Pit is very important, but it also pins everybody in that cube. Then we went with the Deadeye, right? One of the biggest killers in the whole game right now. So the Deadeye has his DMR, but I gave him the old trusty M45 shotgun with that lethal 2. It makes him very effective hitting on 3s. And then I threw an explosive ammo on there, so it gets it up to lethal 3 plus 1 die as well. I also gave him a health pack because I figured he might be one of the weaker ones, and with that shotgun he's going to be up close, and I gave him a combat knife just in case. I ended up taking Snapshot as my command ability, and then I spent 10 points to have 1 extra command die for the whole game. And that's it, that's my list, that's a 200-point list. I think for Rumble Pit it's a highly effective killing list, but we'll have to see later in the video if it helped me with objectives. It was also really cool, I got to bring my high ground 3D printed map that I created that I'm going to be making even better here after this video. And I was able to play that on game 3, so look forward to that. So now let's talk about game 1. Game 1 was Rumble Pit. If you don't know what Rumble Pit is, it is a Slayer game type where you spawn models as if you're spawning them like items. So you roll 2d6 and wherever that lands is where your Spartan lands. Items do start on the map, but weapons don't come in until round 5. So my opponent's list was fairly simple. It was the DMR Deadeye, it was the Mark 7 with the assault rifle, it was the Brawler with the Bulldog, and it was the Zvezda with the Commando. He put combat knives on all of his units, and he put Overshield on his Deadeye and his Brawler. He chose Snapshot as his special order, and he paid 10 to get an extra command die for the whole game. Very traditional to the Recon Edition box with just some extra things added onto it. This guy was a Dead Zone player, so keep that in mind. He doesn't regularly play Halo Flashpoint, but he does play Dead Zone. As you can see on the screen, these are the spawns of our models. Pretty fun map to play on as well. Remember, they are random spawns, so he was actually spawning on my side, which is kind of crazy. 3 of his models spawned on my side, while 1 of his spawned in the top left-hand corner there. As well as you can see, a couple of my models actually spawned on his side as well, my Deadeye on the top left-hand corner, and my Gungnir underneath that bridge. My CQB unfortunately spawned all the way in the corner, but I was luckily able to hide behind this UNSC barrier to protect him. So just a disclaimer, I actually am filming this a week after playing the tournament, so the details might be a little bit fuzzy, but I was able to jot down everything that happened to the best of my knowledge. I believe I ended up getting first turn this game, moving up my Gungnir to take some shots at his, but soon after he moved up his Fezda to take some clear shots at my Gungnir model. Luckily, because of the guarded rule, he wasn't able to get headshots on him, but he was able to damage him slightly. So then I was able to move up my Deadeye the next turn and fast transition him to death, basically with the shotgun and the DMR. It's always important to shoot the DMR first because the shotgun will knock back your target. Plus, using the explosive ammunition giving me extra dice and extra lethal, the Svezda didn't stand a chance. I learned that little loadout from a community member called Resonant on Discord. We played a few games together, and this was one of his favorite loadouts. Then my opponent moved up his Mark 7 with assault rifle, took some shots at my Deadeye, and then in a series of events between a couple of activations, unfortunately I did lose my Deadeye and my Gungnir model, putting my opponent in the lead. Then he ended up moving his Deadeye to a pretty high advantage point on the map, which is where you want to place your Deadeye. And this is ultimately what ended up killing my Gungnir model. You have to use the terrain to your benefit. Then I was able to move up my CQB to basically obliterate his Mark 7. And then I was able to kill his Brawler as well with my Deadeye that's hiding back underneath that bridge because he spawned back right underneath there. And the state of the board at this point had basically a couple models on each side off the board ready to respawn. My opponent was able to respawn his Brawler and get him into close combat with my CQB. If anyone's going to kill my CQB in close combat, it's got to be the Brawler. And he was able to spawn his Svezda to get him on the board. I think at this point we were pretty evenly matched, just exchanging kills. Basically, he would get a point, I would get a point, he would get a point, I would get a point. I ended up rolling the dice and spawning my Gungnir model all the way across the other side of the map again, but that's okay because he has that shock rifle. He was able to laser line right to that Deadeye with the shock rifle, and I used an extra command eye to shoot him twice with that weapon and ended up killing his Deadeye, getting him out of that high vantage point. At this point, my Deadeye had not moved yet. He was still hiding behind the bridge and kind of halfway in between the building. But I needed to get him at least a little bit higher so he can get some really good shots in. So I decided to move him up 1 just to get him onto that bridge. And at this point, I was able to kill his Svezda again with fast transition and the explosive ammo, shooting once again with the DMR first and then the shotgun with the explosive ammo and destroying his Svezda once again. He did end up spawning his Mark 7, moved him above my Deadeye, getting clear shot at him and almost killing my Deadeye, basically leaving him on 2 wounds and very vulnerable. I think at this point we were still very close in score, but I might have been up 2 points at this point. So because I was a little bit nervous about him catching up, I actually had my Gungnir move from that back corner, pick up an item. Luckily it was a drop shield, and I moved right onto my Deadeye and placed the drop shield down, giving that cube an extra 2 shields. He did end up spawning his Deadeye very close to my CQB behind that little tower there. I'm not too sure what ended up happening with this guy. I don't know if I killed him again, but he kind of seems to disappear from my photos. But I do know he did eventually spawn his Svezda again right near my CQB. I decided to leave combat with the Brawler to attack this guy's Svezda again. This guy's poor Svezda is just getting beat up this whole game. That way, if I leave combat and join another combat, I will get extra dice to my roll. Luckily, I was able to kill his Svezda as well, giving me a little bit more points in the lead. Nearing the end of the game, the only way that he could tie me is basically moving up his Brawler, taking a shot at my Deadeye, hopefully trying to kill him with only 2 wounds left, and then using a command eye to move an extra die to jump into melee combat with my Gungnir model and try to kill him. Unfortunately, while shooting my Deadeye, he was not able to kill him, so it did not give him a point. And when he went into combat, he was able to kill my Deadeye, but not get an extra point to tie the game. So the game ended with me having a 1-point lead, and I was able to win that game. I think I got about 4 achievements this game, nothing too crazy. Let's talk about game number 2 now. So game number 2 was Capture the Flag, everyone's favorite game type. A very hard scoring game, especially with the 3-man list that I brought. I knew this was going to be kind of a struggle, but I think if I killed him enough and was able to move up enough, I would be able to capture a flag or at least tie the game. My main objective was to obviously at least tie this game. I ended up playing on the exact same map, so I asked my opponent if we could switch sides. We ended up rolling for it, and I was able to pick the side that I wanted. So I switched the side really just for content. I don't think there was an advantage either way. His side has the highest vantage point. Technically, my side did have a little bit more cover. Now, my opponent's list included the Bulldog Brawler. He had the Combat Knife. He also had a Needler Brawler with the Fuel Rod Cannon and a Combat Knife, so very scary. Once again, it's never a bad idea to give your close combat guys, your guys who don't shoot very well regularly, some frag weapons, because all they need to do is hit the cube. Then he was using the Sticky Grenade Launcher, Gungnir, Plasma Grenade Launcher, whatever you want to call it. And lastly, he was using the DMR Deadeye with a Carbine. Now, this opponent was definitely my most competitive opponent of the day. He actually plays regularly in the Dead Zone US Nationals, which the rule set is based off of this game, and he has won first place in the Dead Zone US Nationals before. So this was going to be a fun match. In Capture the Flag, you spawn on the back row there, and I spawned my models accordingly. I kind of have a couple plans when it comes to Capture the Flag with my models. So the CQB having knockback with his hammer is a great unit to place onto the flag to prevent anyone from grabbing it, because you cannot pick up the flag if there's an enemy in that cube. Now, I always think about doing this, but with like a 3-man squad, I can't just sacrifice one of my units to sit on the flag. I have to kind of just throw all my units at the flag and see what happens. He ended up spawning all of his units just in 2 cubes behind the highest structure on the map. Now, it would have been really smart for me to try to move up that Gungnir model and try to take some shots of one of those cubes to really pin and disturb, his formation going on there. I didn't do that. I make a lot of silly mistakes this round that we'll go over, or this game that we'll go over a little bit later. That is definitely one in hindsight that I should have done. I ended up getting first turn as well in this match, and I just ended up moving up my CQB up into the middle, trying to hide behind that structure there in the middle to hopefully maybe try to shake things up, just to have a chance to be able to move 3, because this guy usually gets pinned a lot. Which brings me to some feedback that I definitely have about the game. I really love grenade and frag weapons, of course. It is pretty much a necessity to use them in all of your lists because they are just so powerful, and pinning is just so powerful in this game. But because I used it all the time, because opponents used it all the time, it almost comes into play in every single list. But I do think it is just too powerful. I think it should be nerfed a little bit. I've had a lot of discussions about the frag weapons in particular, and personally I think that you should only get pinned when you're hit by a frag weapon if you fail your saves, rather than the rule now where basically you get shot by any frag weapon no matter what. As long as they hit the cube, you're getting scattered and pinned. I do believe that scattered should happen. I think that's a fun aspect in the game, especially if you're like holding a flag or like trying to run up to a flag or an objective. But getting pinned no matter what, as long as they hit the cube, which happens almost 100% of the time, seems a little bit overpowered, and there's really no reason not to bring a grenade or a frag weapon in your lists. So I kind of propose in the future that hopefully Mantic adjusts this to where you only get pinned. You're still scattered, but you only get pinned if you fail your saves on that frag weapon. And I'm not saying that just because I got fragged with my CQB, because honestly, he's probably going to fail all of his saves anyway with a frag weapon because he only saves on a 6-up. So no matter what, he's getting pinned. But speaking of grenades, I did end up moving my Gungnir model up, and I took a couple shots at him, disturbing some of his models. He then moved his brawler up with that fuel rod cannon and ended up shooting my Gungnir model, scattering him into the cube basically next to him, which was like a half cube, and pinning him, which is a smart move. As you can see in the middle here, the Spartan laser did spawn, and I knew as soon as that Spartan laser spawned that I needed to get my Gungnir model to that Spartan laser because it is one of the best combos in the game right now. And after a turn or two, I was actually able to run up my Deadeye, snag that flag, and use an extra command die to move one extra space closer to my respawn point to turn it in. His brawler ended up coming up trying to melee my Gungnir model and killing him. And unfortunately, my Gungnir model did die, but my opponent still seems to kind of have been, forgetting about that Spartan laser that's right there in the middle. With my CQB model and his rocket launcher, I was able to knock back and damage his Gungnir model that was all the way on the top there. Now you can probably notice that my opponent did actually get a couple extra movement dies and a shoot dies, which in this game mode I think are the most important. My plan was actually coming together very nicely because my Gungnir model spawned back and I was actually able to pick up that Spartan laser, which is an incredible combo for the Gungnir since he does not need to take a long action to shoot these weapons. And don't ask me why, I have no idea. It was a tournament and maybe my mind was in a different place. This match was going really fast and I appreciate that. But stupidly enough, my whole plan to get that Spartan laser went out of the window because I decided to charge his brawler that was hiding behind this UNSC barrier here. Don't ask me why I didn't just take a shot on him. I don't know. That is mistake number 2 in this game that I made. Obviously, I did not end up killing his brawler. Then my opponent with those movement dice was able to move his Gungnir model back up to that top platform along with his Deadeye, giving him some really good vantage points. Ultimately killing my Deadeye as well that was carrying the flag. I spawned my Deadeye back in this corner over here, which is mistake number 3. I kept spawning all of my models on the opposite side of where his flag was. I don't know why. I was basically trying to prevent him from capturing my flag, ensuring a tie, when really I had the lead when it came to flag capturing because his flag was a lot closer to mine. Then my CQB, being the permanently pinned CQB that he always is just chilling in the middle trying to move one extra space every single time he's pinned and shoot anybody with a rocket that he can. His brawler ended up killing my Gungnir model, taking that Spartan laser away from me. He ended up spawning his other brawler up top there with the fuel rod cannon again. I ended up moving my CQB a little bit closer to the flag. Don't worry, he was not pinned anymore, but he ended up dying by the Deadeye and the Gungnir model. But I was able to take out his Gungnir model on the way. I did spawn him again back in that corner, trying to prevent him from taking the flag instead of just trying to grab his. And he was able to move up with his brawler, grab my flag, and then move one extra die closer to his respawn point. But yeah, this was the point where I started to get nervous, of course. I was doing a really good job killing his models. I ended up actually with 7 achievements this round, getting the overkill achievement of killing 4 of his models in 1 turn. But I just wasn't playing the objective well because I was too concerned about tying at least with only 3 models and preventing him from taking mine than actually going towards his flag again. I was able to prevent him from moving his flag even further, and by the time I decided to go towards his flag to try to capture it, he ended up moving a lot of his units over there, preventing me from doing so. He was ultimately able to grab his flag, which unfortunately you can't see here, and moving his flag carrier into the centermost building with the windows there. Mistake number 4 that I made is I spawned back my CQB and ended up shooting another unit instead of the flag carrier that was in the center building, simply because I forgot he was in there and I didn't see him, so I forgot he was in there and I ended up shooting a different model, letting him basically turn in that flag the next turn and giving him 1 point. We had some extra time. I knew I wasn't gonna get his flag because he put all of his models on it. So basically I was trying to achievement hunt at this point, and I was able to, like I said, get about 7 achievements in this game. Overall, this was a really fun game. He was a very experienced player, and the whole time we were telling each other, we're just gonna tie this game. There's no way one of us is gonna win. We're just gonna tie it. And then he ended up pulling out the W, which is good for him. He ended up teaching me some things along the way with his gameplay, being an experienced Dead Zone player, and it was just an overall really good competitive game. Now let's talk about game 3. It was Oddball, one of the fan favorites, I like to think. And unfortunately, for 3 games in a row, I got on the same map. So I asked the guy running the tournament, could I switch boards just so I'm playing on a different board and not the same boards 3 times in a row? And he let me play on my high ground map, which was super exciting to play on. Technically, this is the first official game that I played on this map, and it was really fun, as you'll see. Now, my opponent's list, he used the CQB hammer as well. He used the Gungnir with grenade launcher as well, same as mine. He used the Mark 7 with the assault rifle and the DMR Deadeye. Unfortunately, I didn't get the items he specifically used for both of them, but those were the models that he used. Now, we both ended up spawning in the corners that had basically the least amount of terrain in them. As you can see here, I did move my CQB, but he was spawned right behind this rock. And my opponent agreed that it was okay that all of my models should be able to spawn in their spawning locations. And unfortunately, this rock was taking up most of it. So we were able to nudge the rock a little bit to spawn my CQB in that little space. He's not there now, but he was right there to spawn. My opponent ended up spawning on the complete opposite end next to the missile launcher behind there. Very, very comparable spawn points. But like I said, I did move up my CQB all the way to the middle to grab that oddball that was spawning right onto the bridge, using that grapple shot to get up there and pick it up. Now, one thing I did think about is if I could have just grapple shotted the oddball and snatched it. But either way, I think I wanted to be up there and protecting myself from any available shots that could be taken at me. But he did end up moving his CQB up there, trying to knock me around, and he did a very good job. He knocked me around, scattering the oddball down to closer to his side, and then pushing me to the opposite cube of the bridge. Then I used my Gungnir to try to take out his Gungnir, because if he was able to take shots at me and pin me, that would be very detrimental. So I wanted to use my shock rifle and shoot his Gungnir model to try to kill it. Luckily, I was able to kill his Gungnir model, but silly me, he actually didn't activate it yet, so it didn't really matter if I killed him or not. And I knew if I just ran down there, grabbed that oddball, he would just shoot me with his grenade launcher and toss me around anyway, and I would lose the oddball anyway. So I decided to play reactive and hopefully let him try to grab the oddball and me prevent him from getting it, which he did with his Mark 7. He grabbed that oddball right there in the center. Then I was able to reactively move my Deadeye closer to the center to get some clear shots on him, using that fast transition combo with the shotgun and the DMR, and I ended up killing him, preventing him from getting any points. Then he moved up his Deadeye to grab that oddball, which unfortunately I didn't have any other models left to activate because I only had 3 models, so he did end up getting a point this round. And that was the end of the round. Now, because we were playing Oddball Reloaded, the oddball does spawn into the center of the platform again. And what I did here is I activated my CQB first, using a shoot action to lunge at his CQB, knocking him back, then grabbing the oddball with my CQB and using an extra command eye to move him 1 extra space back into combat with his Deadeye to try to get a kill with the oddball to get that extra point. Unfortunately though, I was unsuccessful at killing him, but it was definitely worth a shot to try to get some extra points in oddball. Then it was his turn and he used his Gungnir model to shoot at the cube that my CQB with the ball is in and the Deadeye was in, actually being able to scatter them. Funny enough, both models in that cube end up scattering into the wall, taking wall damage, but just staying in that cube. But the oddball did scatter out of the cube, which was important for him to deny me points. Then because he didn't move his CQB and I knew he was dangerous, I ended up shooting him with the grenade launcher on the Gungnir just to pin him, to basically do what everyone does to me with my hammer CQB. It's just pin him so he can only move 1 space or lunge. I ended up moving my Deadeye up to take a couple shots at his Gungnir, killing him, and then he ended up spawning his Mark 7 close to the center, taking some shots at my Deadeye. Luckily, he didn't kill him because the next turn, as the oddball spawned back in the center, I grabbed the oddball with my Deadeye and ran away with it. He knew that his CQB was pinned and he would not be able to move and lunge at me to knock me around. So he moved up his Mark 7 up to try to melee and kill my Deadeye model to steal that oddball. So unfortunately he was not able to kill my model, giving me a point. And I believe what he did here is he decided to activate twice and then shoot into my Deadeye and his Mark 7 to try to deny me points with a grenade weapon, his Gungnir model, and scatter us about. The oddball ended up scattering a little bit under that bridge, which my CQB the next turn just moved 1 space to basically move and pick up that oddball. You can see there's a lot of pinning on the board here. This is a crazy game type when you have grenade weapons, and it is actually a lot of fun. Then it was the start of a new round, and I believe he stole first turn, grabbing that oddball with his CQB and using a command die to move him down. Then of course I did what the Gungnir does best, and I shot at that CQB, tossing him around, and then ran down there to grab the oddball. But then the CQB unfortunately ended up scattering in the same cube as my Deadeye, but because he was pinned, he could not melee. He then shot me with his Gungnir model, scattering my Gungnir and the oddball away, so I sprinted over with my CQB to be able to pick it up since he wasn't in close combat or anything. His only chance was to move his Deadeye up and try to take a couple shots at my CQB to prevent me from getting points. And he was successful. He was able to kill my CQB. But that's okay, because at this point I got enough points to basically assure me the game. He would have to pull off some crazy stuff to be able to tie me. So kind of while all this cluster was going on my side of the board, which looks really awesome by the way, he ended up grabbing that oddball, running away with it towards his side. I prevented him once from getting a point, which was just enough to make it so the only way that he could have tied is if he killed one of my units with the oddball, which unfortunately he didn't end up doing, but he did run away with the oddball with his Gungnir model and getting a couple extra points, being one less point from me, giving me the win on this match. But that's it. That ended the tournament. I ended up with 2 wins, 1 loss, and I ended up getting 2nd place overall. And I do attribute it to partially because that second game, even though I lost, I was able to get 7 achievements on it, so I was really able to capitalize on achievements. My second opponent ended up getting 1st place. He won all 3 of his matches, which kind of makes sense with being such a competitive Dead Zone player who has won US Nationals before. It was very cool. Everyone who played ended up getting the holographic cards as well, which, keep in mind, is the game store's discretion. I think Mantic only wants you to give out 1 of these cards, but some game stores will give out more. Overall, my opponents were all great. They were all really fun to play against. This is a picture of us here. The tournament ended up being a blast. Rumble Pit, an all Rumble Pit tournament would have been fun, but I kind of do like that they switched it up a little bit just to add a little bit more variance to it. Also, let me know if you enjoy these videos, because I'll do more every time I play in a tournament. But other than that, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for some exciting stuff on the channel. I have lots of good ideas that I hopefully can execute in the future. But thanks for watching, guys, and make sure to go out there and play some tournaments. See you.